Alright, let's dive into something that's been making waves recently. Trump's latest move to limit birthright citizenship in the US. And honestly, this is one of those topics where the more you unpack it, the more layers you find. So, let's start with the hook. Why is a 150-year-old policy suddenly under fire again? What's really going on here? First off, Trump just signed 2 new executive orders targeting birthright citizenship. One expands the definitions of non-citizens whose kids won't qualify, and the other cracks down on birth tourism. Basically, pregnant mothers coming to the US to give birth so their babies become citizens. Now, personally, I think this is where things get really interesting. Birthright citizenship is rooted in the 14th Amendment, a cornerstone of American law. So, when Trump says, "This should have happened years ago," it's not just a policy tweak, it's a direct challenge to a constitutional principle. What many people don't realize is that this isn't just about immigration. It's about the very idea of who gets to be an American. One thing that immediately stands out is the timing. Just weeks after the Supreme Court shot down his previous attempt, Trump's back at it. In my opinion, this feels less like a legal strategy and more like a political statement. The court ruled that birthright citizenship is here to stay, but Trump's response is essentially, "Fine, I'll find another way." It's a bold move, but it also raises a deeper question. How much power does the president really have to reshape constitutional rights? From my perspective, this is where the line between executive authority and judicial precedent gets blurry, and that's a dangerous place to be. Now, let's talk about the details. The first order targets kids born to non-citizen parents in specific categories. Members of foreign terrorist groups, foreign government employees, or those who've committed fraud. On the surface, that sounds reasonable, right? But here's where it gets tricky. What this really suggests is that the administration is trying to carve out exceptions to a blanket rule. And while some of these cases might be clear-cut, others could open the door to arbitrary enforcement. A detail I find fascinating is how this order skirts around the Supreme Court's ruling by focusing on parental status rather than directly challenging the 14th Amendment. It's a clever workaround, but it also feels like a loophole waiting to be exploited. The second order goes after birth tourism, which Trump claims is a massive issue. He's talked about hundreds of thousands of babies born this way, but the numbers tell a different story. The Migration Policy Institute puts the figure at around 22,000 to 26,000 annually, not exactly a tidal wave. Stephen Miller, Trump's advisor, framed it as a national security threat, saying these kids gain access to welfare and voting rights. But if you take a step back and think about it, this feels more like fear-mongering than a real crisis. Birth tourism is a drop in the bucket compared to the millions of births in the US every year. So why the big push? In my opinion, it's about narrative painting immigration as a threat to American identity. Here's where it gets even more complicated. Legal experts like Gabriel Chin point out that while the president can restrict who enters the country, he can't unilaterally decide who's a citizen once a child is born on US soil. That's settled law thanks to the Supreme Court. But Trump's orders seem to ignore that. Personally, I think this is where the administration's strategy falls apart. They're trying to have it both ways, respecting the court's ruling while still undermining the principle behind it. It's a high-wire act, and I'm not convinced it'll hold up in court. So what's the bigger picture here? In my opinion, this isn't just about immigration policy. It's about the ongoing battle over American identity. Trump's base sees birthright citizenship as a loophole, while others view it as a fundamental right. What makes this really interesting is how it ties into broader trends. The rise of nationalism, the erosion of trust in institutions, and the politicization of the judiciary. If you ask me, this is just the latest chapter in a much larger story about who gets to define what it means to be American. Closing thought. This isn't just a legal debate. It's a cultural one. Trump's orders might not hold up in court, but they've already shifted the conversation. And that's the real takeaway here. Whether you agree with him or not, Trump has a knack for forcing us to ask tough questions. So, here's one for you. What does it mean to be an American in 2024? And who gets to decide? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is a conversation worth having.